All right, welcome back. Professor Stevens here. Today we're looking at an overview of rational numbers. Rational numbers. They're called rational numbers because they're rational, they make sense. So that's a little map joke, but honestly, they do. They make a lot of sense. It's kind of surprising, honestly, to me when I think back, because I'm sure that some civilizations understood this concept of a rational number and what it is, but everyone didn't really, or they didn't. It made sense and they understood it, but they just didn't know how to explain it or how to put it into words or how to put it into numbers. Um, so what happens when have a I have something here. I have a napkin here. Okay. And someone needs a napkin over there, and or like we're say we're eating a meal or something, and I have this napkin, and I just say, oh, well, here, you take that. Well, we went from one napkin, and then I split it up, and now we have two napkins. Here, wow, that's awesome. So when you split one thing up, you get two. Man, that's really cool, huh? So if have one bar of gold and I split it up, I'd have two. I can double the amount of value. No, no one ever actually thought like that. But that's what they're saying. When I say that, oh, I have one napkin, I split it, and now I have two napkins. I have two napkins. That's not true. And you all are already thinking probably to yourself, well, that's a half. That's not two, that's a half. Yeah. But that concept of a half had to come from somewhere. Someone had to say, you know what? I don't like the idea of us splitting this one chocolate bar and calling it two because I didn't increase in my chocolate. I decreased. It's not zero though. I have something, so I have to give it some kind of number. Well, that's exactly what a rational number is. A rational number, and I guess it might be a little harder to see than I thought it would be. But a rational number is any number that can be expressed as a fraction. So any number that can be expressed as a fraction. So that's like 1/2. That's like 2/3. That's like 4/4. Oh wait, is it 4/4 a whole number? Well, it is a whole number because if you do 4/4, you get one whole, right? So it's a whole number. But guess what? I express that whole number as a fraction, so therefore it must be a rational number. And honestly, that's what we're doing. We started at natural numbers, then we moved to whole numbers, then we moved to integers, then we moved to rational numbers. That is because any of the previous things we did, we can express as a fraction. Therefore, they're all rational numbers. So any number that can be expressed as a fraction is a rational number. And so for the next couple of units, we will be looking at different ways to express rational numbers. So we have fractions. We can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. We can change the way things look. For example, that last fraction I put up there, 4/4 or 4/4, it's really, as you all said, or saying at home, and as we said earlier, it's just one whole. So I can literally write 4/4 equals one whole. I can also write it equals 1/1. I can express it lots of different ways. But we also can take 1/2, and some of you may say that's 50%. When we talk about percents in a future chapter, a future unit, yes, that's exactly right. We took a percent, and that percent can be expressed as a fraction. Therefore, it is also considered to be a rational number. Well, what about decimals? Because 50% is really just 0.5, right? Well, guess what? Yeah, a decimal is a rational number if it can be expressed as a fraction. So what kind of numbers aren't rational numbers then? All of the numbers can be expressed as fractions, right? And all of them we can at least write as a decimal. Well, if you can write something in decimal, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stop. And we will talk about more things like that later. But just to give you a heads up, numbers like pi or e, um, they aren't rational. Or numbers like square root of 2, they're not rational. Why? Because you can't express them as a fraction. People have been trying for a very long time to express pi as a fraction. So if you ever do it, It's a lot of money in there for you. Make sure you let me know so I can check your work, you know. Uh, no, but seriously, that's not a rational number. And so for a lot of people, that doesn't make sense because if you can't express it as a fraction, that means you can't visually represent it. As many of you first learned about fractions, you had your circles and you split it up, or you had your rectangles and you split it up. Well, yeah, that's easy for you to visually see. You can't do that with e or pi or square root of 2. Actually, you can do that square root of 2, but we'll talk about that in another class, actually. So that is it. We're going to be looking at rational numbers. Um, any number that can be expressed as a fraction. In this unit especially, we're going to be focusing on fractions.